Welcome to another episode of Behind the Dreamers. I'm Jennifer Loading, and we are talking to the achievers, the creators, the magic makers, and the dreamers. These are our friends. These are your friends, and they are living the extraordinary. Well, my guest today, whom of which I am super excited to bring on, is a super dad. He says he's dating his wife with a lead by example way of living. He's a contagious personality who is on a mission to positively impact 1 million role models around the globe to lead a functionally, and he's got that FUN in capital letters, healthy life through education, encouragement, and community. So you guys are going to be in, I think, for a real treat today. He is awesome, awesome. But before we do that, we have to do a shout out to our sponsors. So today's episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Photography. If you are a creator needing post-production, consultation, or promotion, Walt Mills is your guy. Whether short films, YouTube films, photography work, or a new headshot, Walt can help you find a solution to meet your needs. To learn more about him and his work, go to photosbywalt.com. We also want to give a shout out to our friend Chris Clow of Upbeat Media Productions. If you are in need of turnkey special event production, Clow is your go-to. To learn more about him and his work, you're going to want to go to upbeatmediapro.com. All right. Now that we knocked that out, we can have our guest talk now. It's going to be all fun. All right. So Dai Manuel is an award-winning digital thought leader and author. He's a distinguished Toastmaster, TEDx speaker, and keynote speaker. He's a former partner and chief operating officer of a multi-million-dollar retail company and sought-after lifestyle mentor, executive performance coach. Dai knows the struggle of the juggle and keeping his health and happiness a priority. He models his work based on the 5 F's, which I'm going to let him talk about. I'm not even going to tell you. I'm just going to let him talk about that. But he is fun. His social media is fun. He is like walking his talk. And so we want to welcome you to the show, Dai. Super excited to chat with you today.
Jennifer, thank you. It's an absolute honor to be here, as well as I absolutely love your energy, and it comes through loud and clear in every podcast I've listened to. But more importantly, seeing you on video today, it's just like, wow, this is the real deal. And it's wonderful to see that level of authenticity come out. But also, you're providing a place for these types of conversations just to happen and be documented, and all of us get to be flies on the wall. So it's just nice to be the fly on the mic today. So, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. This is just great.
I like that, fly on the mic. And yes, I do have a lot of energy. That's a thing. It's funny because I'm like the person that's either really energy or I'm just down for the count. It's like I just go until I fall over.
I know that way very well. I know it can be problematic at times, but man, when it comes to producing, get out of the way, right?
Yeah, I'm like, get out. We got things to make happen today, right? And what's great is, the beauty of it, you've been on podcasts, and I've been guest on podcasts. And I think it is so fun when you get, creative people that just have great energy on the other end, because it makes my job a lot easier too. It just makes it fun for me when I can get those kind of people on here. We can have great conversation and just, have fun with it, right?
I'm glad to be here. So let's have some fun.
Absolutely. All right. So I want to open this up because our audience, right now, they have no idea who you are until we're going to make sure that by the time we're done today, they're going to know who you are. But they have no idea. So tell us a little bit about, because you've got kind of this really neat background. Came from this chief operating officer, of this company, and now you're living this life of really just kind of being this influencer and speaker. So kind of maybe tell us how this happened for you.
Well, like life, there's never a straight line. I spent most of my adulthood, as far as professionally speaking, helping people, and helping people navigate change, but especially in the health and wellness side of things, because for myself, if I go back to sort of my origin story of what brought me to even wanting to do that, to really not even just wanting, but really thinking that it was the only path for me. That those moments where we have that clarity, that just immense clarity that, gosh, I want to do this every day. It's like breathing. I like it, because it feels good, right? For those that practice breath work, you know what I mean? You get that rush, right? When you really fill the lungs, you oxygenate the body. It's just, you feel clear, you feel confident, you feel on purpose. And for me, I didn't come from a place of feeling like that. Okay. Bottom line, I didn't. And in fact, I came from the opposite end of that spectrum. And At age 9, I went through some trauma. My parents separated and divorced, and I'm going to date myself. I'm 45, almost 46 now. And so you go back 35 years ago, there was only one other kid in my class of 30 kids that had parents that weren't still together. Only one other kid. Where today, and it's unfortunate, and it's a very sad statistic, but more marriages fail than succeed nowadays. Right. So today, the conversation, the stigmas aren't as severe, but also there's a lot more resources to support people, especially kids, when they're navigating those big changes. And so that was my first time really feeling like change is out of my control. This life is chaotic. It's crazy. And I can't do anything about it. Now, again, 9, 10 years old. I mean, of course, you feel a little bit, under the gun. And more importantly, I kind of felt like, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and there's that big boulder, and I can't outrun it. It's coming at me. And I figured that I wanted some control, though. I wanted something that I could feel some consistency in my life. And for lack of better judgment, I found that I could console myself with food and video games and movies, and quite literally create little daily escapes, emotionally, psychologically, emotionally, physically, by doing those pastimes. And unfortunately, it became my main thing. That was my normal. Eat a lot of very nutrition poor foods, but very high in calories, but also playing video games and watching movies. So very sedentary. But I felt like I had control over that, and I felt like it made me feel better in the moment. And, for 5 years, that was my lifestyle, from 9 to 14, almost 15 years old. And to the point where, I remember the doctor pulling my mom in the office and like, Penny Hand, your son dies morbidly obese. No, morbidly obese. Now, at 14, I was like, okay, that doesn't sound good. I don't know what morbid means. I don't know what obese means. But the doctor, looking at my mom, he didn't look happy. He looked rather alarmed. So this probably isn't a good thing. And to be fair, I didn't need that validation that it was not healthy to be like that, because I was experiencing all the symptoms and the psychological burden of depression and anxiety and some other health complications based on the symptoms associated to being in that state of unhealth. And life was hard. It was really hard, and for lack of a better way to explain it now, now I can articulate this, but back then I couldn't. But I remember one day very distinctly becoming extremely fearful that if I didn't make a change, the next 5 years weren't going to be any better. In fact, I knew it was only going to get harder. And if I had to summarize this in a quick statement that I think everyone can relate to, I became more afraid of not changing than the idea of changing.
Wow.
So I knew I was ready to make a change. Now, how to make the change, I don't know. I had no idea. I was like, I want to get healthy, but I have no idea where that even starts and how to do that and what to do. And who do I know in my life right now that could even help me with this if I wanted to ask for help? And I realized I just needed to start doing something. And in particular, something that was the opposite of what I was currently doing. I remember going to the library, getting books out on fitness and on nutrition and lifestyle. And, my kids, who are both, they're 17 and 19 now, as they like to say, they're very old souls and very wise. I mean, the kids, but I allow that. And, but they'll often joke at me, like, Dad, why don't you just Google it? I'm like, because your dad's older than Google. That's the bottom line. And they get a bit of a lark out of that. But, that's what I had to do back then. I went to the library. I remember looking up articles on the microfiche. Now I know there's some people listening to this who are like, what is that? Look it up. You'll get a good laugh. And, but I just became someone that was very hungry for information and self-education, because I knew that I could make changes, but I didn't know how to do it. And so that's what started a 2-year journey for me from the age of 15 till 17. I just started to move a bit more, be more aware of what I was eating, but also becoming more aware of how I was associating with others, like looking to people that were doing things that I was wanting to do and trying to get around that more. And after 2 years, I remember waking up one day and I had this daily checklist of things that I would do, like, I'm going to exercise today. Or like for me, it was going for a bike ride. I was going to eat healthy. And often I would drink at least 2 liters to 3 liters of water a day. Those like the mainstays that were there every day. And I remember this one day waking up and I was like, I went about my day and I realized later on in the day, and I wasn't really aware of it, but I was aware of it because I was like, I haven't been checking things off my list as I finished them today. And yet I did everything that I would have had on my list. And that is when I knew, wow, I've got a lifestyle now. This is just my way of being. This is my new normal. I didn't have to think about it. I just did it. I lived it. Like it became part of my everyday. And that's when I started to really appreciate that change is possible when we decide it. You know, like when we decide that we want change, man, we are more than capable of creating that. And that was sort of what set me in motion to commit my life to health and fitness, because I had a friend of my parents come by the house. You know, here I am 17 and a half. I'm making myself some food in the kitchen. This old guy, and I say old guy because I laugh at this now because he's actually the age that I am now is what he was back then. And here I am. And back then I was like, man, he's an old guy. He's like a friend of my mom's, right? And I remember Larry coming to the door and he's like, Dai, do you have a minute? Like, is your mom around? And I'm like, oh yeah, she's in the back gardening. And he just stood there looking at me. I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird now. And this is an uncomfortable glare right now. You know, I'm like, she's in the back. Why are you hanging out here? And it was like a good 10 seconds. You know, it was awkward.
Yeah.
He's sort of there. And I could tell that he started like wrestling with something. And he goes, can I just talk to you for a minute? And I'm like, oh, geez, what did I do last weekend? You know, am I in trouble? Like instantly, you know, the sweats are coming on. My palms are sweaty. Like my heart rate's going up. I'm like, I must be in trouble. I'm caught. I must have done something. And he goes, and anyway, so he came in, sat down at the table, and I sit down, and right away he starts acknowledging all the changes that he's seen in me and telling me, like, I've inspired him. Now, you have to understand, at this point, I felt I had very little value, if any. You know, I was coming from a very hard place and a hurting place. And to hear that come from that gentleman at that time was just amazing. It was the first time I'd really taken note of that and that feeling it made in me. But more importantly, what happened next was the end-all be-all for me, because it's what set in motion the next 30 years. He asked me for help. He asked me, could I help him navigate some health changes? I'm like 17 and a half years old. I'm like, I mean, I just learned how to tie my shoes last week. You know, like, I mean, like really, I felt like, wow, I can do that. I can help with that. And I started to help him. And the amount of fulfillment I felt, Jennifer, in that moment was just, I never felt like that, ever. And I got bit by the bug. Coaching and mentorship. Right then and there, I knew I didn't care what I was going to be doing the rest of my life, but I knew I would be helping people in some fashion. And so that's that origin story. That's sort of what got me started. And if people want to know who I am, I'm a dad. I'm dating my wife. And I help people. That's it. That's all you need to know. You know, but
no, this is such a good story. And you know, you said like so many things. I'm impressed though, because I will agree with you that we can change when we decide to change. And when you hear me close my podcast, if you've listened to any of them, I always say that, you know, to live the extraordinary, we have to start, and every start begins with a decision, because our decisions shape us. They are what make or break us every single day. And so I believe 100%. What I am so impressed with is that as a young person at that age, making that decision, right? Like understanding. So when you mentioned earlier about your kids saying they were old souls, well, maybe the apple didn't fall very far from the tree, because I'm impressed that you did that at that age, because I'm, you know, not, my story is different than yours, but I had to make hard decisions that were related to my health. They came much later for me, into my 40s, when I had to make those decisions. And I know how hard they were in that moment. And I talk about being pinned against the wall when you have like a do or die situation, and you recognize that you can't keep going down the same path you're going, because something is going to break. Something's going to fall apart, right? And making that decision. Sometimes, unfortunately, we have to do hard things. I think some of us are a little more stubborn, so we have to do hard things a few times, right? And then we go, oh, that didn't work. Let's do something different. But I'm just impressed that you did this at such a young age. And then you mentioned this part where this individual says, I want help. And it was like the light bulb goes off. I can help people. I have something, you know? So, wow. Such a good story.
Like I said, though, I couldn't articulate it then, what was going on, but I just knew that I got really honest with myself, where I knew that if I continued doing what I was doing for the last 5 years, you know, up to 15, it was clear, you know, the writing was there. It was very, very apparent that what I'd been doing created the situation I was in. But also, if I was really honest with myself, which I got honest in that morning, looking at myself in the mirror, which I always avoided. I mean, I didn't tell the whole story, but I used to get in the shower, and I had a hack where I would turn the hot water on really hot before I got out. So when I'd come out, the mirror would be covered in condensation. I wouldn't even have to look at my reflection. I mean, there's 2 images of me in that state of unhealth. Only 2. Again, remember, I didn't live in a time where people had high pixel phones in their in their phone, their pocket, right? Like, I think, thankfully, because I look at what my kids have to endure today, and I'm like, well, wow, I don't know what I would have done with that added pressure, but I can tell you, I don't know if I would have navigated the changes the way that I did had I still had to deal with that. Deal with the social media and the media pressures today back 30 years ago. So anyways, I digress, but it was that moment, and it was just, man, I have to make some changes here, but I didn't know what that was. I just knew I didn't want to feel the way I was feeling anymore. I think that was really what it got down to. It was just, I knew that this was a feeling I don't like, I don't want it anymore, and I just got to move away from this. But in order to move away from something, you have to move towards something else. So to me, it was just health. If I get healthy, I start moving my body more, maybe something good will happen. And just trusting a process, right? Fortunately for me, within the first 3 weeks, I experienced a big win. And this is important. I learned something at that time. I knew that anybody that wants to navigate changes, you got to experience a win early on in the change process. You have to. It's that affirmation, that confirmation that what you're doing is working, that the effort actually has a benefit to it. And for me, it was like this massive hill that I used to approach on my bike. Now, I live near the Rockies now, in Vancouver. I'm looking at the mountains every day, and those are mountains. Okay, I grew up in a rural part of Ontario, just outside of Toronto, and I'll tell you, as a morbidly obese 15-year-old kid on a mountain bike, it looked like a mountain. It looked like Everest. Okay, it looked like Everest. But I remember I couldn't ever ascend that mountain. I just couldn't. The very first day I made about a third of the way up, and I had to literally get off my bike and walk it up to the top. But I was proud that I walked it to the top and I didn't turn around and go home. Yeah. And every week I kept doing the same route. And it was about 3 weeks in, I ascended that. I made it to the top. I didn't have to get off the bike. And I was like, I did that. 3 weeks ago, I couldn't do that, but I did it today. And that's what really reaffirmed that, okay, I'm doing the right things. And I think we all need that when it comes to change, right? Like if you think about your changes in the 40s, what was that first win that you remember having?
Yeah.
Do you remember what yours was? What your first win was in the 40s when you were making the big change?
Well, mine came a little later. So for me, I documented this in my book because I was going through a medical condition at that time. So for me, it was about the small progress. But I always tell the story that, I did a ketogenic diet for 2 years when I was trying to get off all my medication and reverse my nerve pain. And mine took a while to get the win. It really did. I documented this, but there was a defining moment when I was standing in my bathroom, and for a fleeting second, because the condition I had was extremely painful, I didn't feel pain in that moment. The pain was gone for that moment. And I knew in that moment that all the work I had done, something was finally breaking. Like there was light at the end of that tunnel. Do you know what I mean? Because when I think whatever journey that we're going through, our pain is relative to who we are and what we're going through, right? And this is why I always say to people, I never want to say I know how you feel. I can feel your pain going, like I feel people's pain, like I can feel it. But I never like to say, hey, I know what you went through and I know how that feels. But I think we all have those moments like you're talking about right there where we see something and we go, if we stick with it long enough, something's doing something, right? And then you're on that right path to keep going. And so I've had people ask me that on a podcast. They're like, how did you do, keto? And you're going to resonate with this because of your story. They said, how did you do keto for 11 months and you didn't feel anything? You didn't see any signs of improvement. But like you, I didn't really see an alternative. I didn't see doing what I was doing is working. So there was really no choice but for me to stick this out and to keep moving forward. You know what I mean? I'm so thankful that I did because you and I wouldn't be talking right now.
Totally though, right? Like it's amazing how impactful seemingly small choices at times, but also the big ones.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just another stepping stone in this journey of life. And sure, it doesn't always bring us necessarily maybe in the direction that we originally planned for. Mm-hmm. But this is where positive thinking and I'm not saying naive thinking, okay? Positive thinking. Right.
You gotta have faith. I think you have to have like that faith, right? The faith.
Faith in oneself, especially, and I love that you refer to that resiliency component, that sort of because as human species, let's be honest, our DNA is developed over eons, like literally millennia. But in that DNA is resiliency. Mm-hmm. And we all have it in us. Like, mm-hmm. I look at what humans have done in the time on this planet. Now, of course, my friends that are very green, okay, and I mean the people that are very sensitive around climate change, they think we're too resilient. We have an ability to sort of overpopulate and overconsume. But you look at some of the conditions that, quite frankly, it shouldn't be possible to have thriving communities and tribal communities and just lives. I look at the Antarctic and I'm like, how do people survive there? I mean, that's crazy. I hate the cold, but yet they're thriving. And so it's in us, our ability to navigate the hard stuff and yet come out on the other side changed, evolved, improved, I think we forget that sometimes. I really do. I think we forget that it's just part of us, Yeah.
I heard something the other day. I've been in the morning when I'm working out, because I work out every day too. And some days I'm in my mood, so I'll get on the elliptical, or if I'm running, and I'll put on some motivational stuff and kind of listen to sort of set my day. And I was listening to something, a motivational speaker the other day, and you're going to love this because we're talking about resilience. And he was talking about the difference between simple and easy. And the words sound very similar when we say them, right? But it's like the nuance between them. That simple is really about the complexity. An outcome, right? Whereas easy is about our determination and our will. And so he used kind of this idea, and you talked about mountains and stuff, but he said, it's easy, it's simple for us to become who we want to be because the path is there. We know what we need to do. It's not always easy to become who we want to be because our will and determination has to play a part. Like, it's easy to, walk, but not necessarily, or simple to walk, right? But it's not easy to climb up a mountain. So it's really kind of puts it into perspective about our will and determination to do things, and, and having that resilience. And, when you do hard things, I think you learn great skills, and I think they apply into our business and into our relationships. They kind of transfold into everything that we do. Right. And that's why I always say, I feel like being an athlete or being in the fitness world is very much similar to owning a business and being an entrepreneur, because there are certain elements that come into both of those spaces. That's why when I do this show, I bring so many different people, because I've kind of filled all those different spaces. And so these people just sort of all resonate with me. And when you start really getting down to the core of like the things they've had to overcome and the challenges, you start hearing these common conversations, these threads of conversation that are very similar amongst all the different people. So I think what you're doing is awesome. And you've been a TEDx speaker and you're an author. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome,
a couple things I've been on the vision board and just sort of checking them off as I go. And, but even though I've got a background in fitness and wellness and nutrition and mindset and all that other good stuff, a big part of my professional career was building a retail operation, but in the fitness and wellness space, selling equipment, accessories, supplements, apparel, like all the fun toys we get to play with if we want to, be healthier and a bit more active. So, but it's interesting, being in that retail space for so long, 17 years, it allowed me a lot of opportunities to connect with a lot of cool people, and have some great experiences, wonderful lifestyle. But there were some darker times too, and to be fair, I never really dealt with some of the inner work. As a teenager at 15 years old, I fixated on the external. I was like, if I change this, how I look in particular, how I move, like all those things that people perceive immediately, if I change all that into something that I believe people want to see or want to connect with, life will get better. This is just what I was thinking. And in particular, people said, well, what kept you motivated? I was like, well, to be honest, I wanted a girlfriend, like I did. I wanted someone to want me.
Whatever gets you there.
Myself then. Well, you know what I mean? Like I didn't want myself. I hear people talk about self-love and all that. And I didn't love myself back. I detested myself. And so for me, that was important. That's what I wanted. And, but I did all this external work, didn't do anything internally. I didn't really do any of the psychological, the emotional work that I did need to fully round out the change. And unfortunately, by 17, almost 18, even though I had this different look or appearance and a different way of carrying myself, I still felt like the morbidly obese teen. And as such, when I first started to go to more social events And I was dealing with a lot of social anxiety, but I realized very early on, oh, wow, I have a couple beers, a couple drinks, man, I don't feel that. In fact, I can be the person I think I want to be. People want to talk to me. People want to hang out with me. People are having fun. Oh, it's a lot easier to talk to those girls. Like, I had all these reasons to justify, wow, this thing called alcohol, it's awesome. But unfortunately, it became a really powerful crutch in my life. Not positively, negatively, especially after 15 years of just dealing with some of my anxiety and some of my other mental health challenges and self-medicating. Like what I used to do with food as that early kid, I then moved to alcohol as an adult. And it wasn't until, and this is where my TEDx talk comes in, because I talk about vulnerability and how that really supported me in navigating some big changes 13 years ago. In particular, making a commitment to my three most important women in my life, my two daughters under the age of 6, but also my wife at that time. We've been together for a decade. And I made a commitment to them, but more so myself, Jennifer, that I'd go 1 year without drinking. And it was just, I didn't say, I never believed I had a problem with alcohol per se, but I know I had a really bad relationship with alcohol. I mean, people refer to me as fun guy Dai when I drink. I was the guy, I'd go to professional trade shows and I'd work a deal with, a supplier or a vendor. And next thing, okay, now that the business is out of the way, where are we partying tonight? I'm going wherever you're going, Dai. I had this reputation. And that's when I really started to realize there's an imbalance here. This idea of how people perceive me and who I actually believe I want to be, they're in conflict. But how do I change that? And, my hand was sort of forced 13 years ago, where my wife approached me and started talking to me about what life would be like to co-parent her kids and to be separated and ultimately divorced. And again, that was very triggering. I'm going back to 9 years old. My parents dropped that bomb on me, right? So it was really a challenging moment, but I was like, you know what? I need to move away from this habit. I need to make a change again. I need to do the work I never did.
Right.
And that's what started in that 1 year. I needed to get sober to have the clarity and the space in my life to then do some of that focused work. And everything changed in that year. Everything, like literally every aspect of my life changed. So much so that I saw the writing on the wall that this professional path I was on was going to need to change. At that period, we had scaled to 8 figures a year. We were doing really, really well. Like we were growing like stink, and I was having fun. I really did enjoy it. I felt very fulfilled doing the work that I was doing. But there came a place where, as I was changing and evolving and getting more aligned with emotionally and spiritually who I believed I wanted to always be, and I started to recognize the path I was on was limiting me achieving that. That was scary as hell. Okay. Like for everybody out there, I know what it's like. You've been in a career or a path for so long that you just figure that that's it. This is what I'm meant to be doing. But when you see that kink in the armor start to really take account of that and recognize that, as good as I always thought it was, and this is what I was supposed to be doing, maybe this isn't. Oh, but then what do I do? And that creates a lot of anxiety too, because it's like, oh, geez, not only am I trying to change myself personally and internally, but now I'm also going to have to change my career, which I wasn't even planning for. But that was all part of that process. And it unfolded over a period of several years. But, and at the end of that year, just to sort of close the loop on this, for those that want to hear all the dirty of, the nitty gritty stuff, you can listen to the TED Talk. But, at the end of that year, my wife, she's like, oh, you did it. I'm so proud of you. Because up until that point, she'd only ever seen me go 1 month without drinking, like the sober Januaries kind of thing. So those little challenges. Yeah. So this was a big deal, in 15 years to go a full year without drinking. It was for me, it was like, wow, this is a big deal. Like, can I do this? I don't know, but I'm going to try. And at the end of that year, she's like, hey, you did it. Do you want to celebrate and share a bottle of wine together? And this is that moment where I, like I shared with you at 17, I had that realization one day when I didn't check everything off on my list. I didn't even have a list, but yet I did all those things. I realized at the end of that year that all these amazing changes that had happened with me, relationships became more fulfilling. I had deeper connections with people that I'd known for like 20 years, but I didn't really know. But now I knew, and they knew me. Right. And I was like, man, so much had changed in a year. What happens if I keep going? 13 years later, I still haven't had a drink again. I feel fine. I think I could have a drink. I don't think there would be any problem with that. I'm a very different person today than I was 13 years ago. But it's just not a part that I need. I don't feel any inkling. There's no desire for it. And it's created so much positive change for me. That's just, I love to share the story, because it is a relationship. It's just a relationship. It's how we value not only ourselves and our lives, but those in it. And if the value proposition isn't, if there's an inequality, that's where alcohol and substances tend to fill in those gaps, or gambling or pornography, or there's lots of these things, right?
Well, and I think, you're hitting upon something. I think it gets back to those. You mentioned early on in this, the inner work and as a young adult, 17, I mean, you're barely even an adult at that point. You're not really able to articulate that, right? Like understand what is inner work, right? So you talked about this existential and interestingly enough, Dai, I mean, adults that are our age are still focusing on existential things. That's why we do what we do, right? And that's why I do as a coach, because I work with a lot of people. It's like I send the people to the fitness trainer, to the marriage counselor, or to, whomever they need to go to. But none of that's going to stick. None of those things that they learn are going to stick until they work on the inner work, right? Like until they come to terms with why they're doing the behaviors they're doing, why they're resisting the change so much, right? Like it's like we have to, there's so much to this. We can have a long conversation because really it takes like years to get to a place where you're unconsciously competent in something. Yes. So you've been exercising for so long. You've been doing like I have. I didn't grow up exercising. My mom used to go to this place called Cosmopolitan and do jazzercise. So I'd see these things, but I didn't grow up an active kid. I did some dance for a while, but I didn't really grow up that sports kid. And so I remember being in my early 20s and thinking, I didn't like my weight and stuff. I needed to exercise, but it was never really a part of my life. It became a part of my life in my late 20s when I started teaching aerobics. I was actually a fitness trainer and I did that for 8 years. And I did it while my oldest daughter was a baby because it was free babysitting. So go back to the existential. It was free. It was money and free babysitting. I didn't care about the working out part. Okay. But then it sort of got into me in a place of, okay, I started valuing that I liked how I was feeling when I was exercising. And then when I went through my whole medical nerve condition, whatever you want to call it, crisis, my late 30s into my early 40s, I became a runner. And that's how I became a marathon runner. I used it as a tool to help me get through the pain. It was actually a diversion technique for me. And then it became a part of my life. So when we talk about all this stuff, this inner work, people try to go make these changes and they want to do them quickly and they're focusing on this outside thing, right? And then what ends up happening is exactly like what you're talking about. They never do the inner work and then it attaches to something else. The whatever the feeling was, it's either food, right? It's either the alcohol. And I always talk about, even like with me, kind of that scarcity mindset, like I grew up, my parents were entrepreneurs and I always kind of joke about this and say, we sort of lived a feast or famine life growing up. We either had things or we had nothing. And so food, I started associating even food as being kind of a feast or famine thing. If I got the Oreo cookies, like I need to hang on to them and I'm going to eat them all because I don't know if I'm going to get them again. And I really started realizing for me how these associations I was having with the food. And ironically enough, I loved sweets my whole life. I have loved sweets, especially ice cream. I don't even crave that stuff anymore. I just don't. There's like an entire bag of Reese's peanut butter cups in my closet right now because we bought them for trick-or-treaters and only one trick-or-treater showed up. So we have all this candy and I'm like, okay, they're in there. I don't crave that stuff like I used to. And I think it's because my mindset has changed to know that if I want it, I can have it, but I don't need it to cope. I don't need that as an emotional tool to make me feel better. You know what I mean? So you said so many great things that have been so great about this. We could spend hours talking about all this,
really
this learning to work through our inner demons. But I think the big message here is that until you do the inner work, all of these things we're trying to do are just, we're going to have a tough time getting them to stick. Like they're going to surface up again. And, that inner work is so important. That the show I did, before, that I recorded before I got on here with you, is the same thing. We were talking about leadership and it was the same thing, how to be effective as a leader. Like she was talking about before she started her company, she did the inner work before she came to, and now she's doing this where she's helping them find talent, but also understanding that talent is also about the leader, understanding how to position their people correctly too, finding the talent, right? And so everything we do in life is about the inner work. It's always about the inner work. It's the journey. It's the hero's journey, the monomyth, right?
Yeah, it's Joseph Campbell. I mean, the guy, I love it. I quote his work frequently. It's
Awesome.
when I first learned about that, I was like it was amazing because when you really appreciate some of his work, you start to realize, man, every single one of us, we're on a journey. And you can start to see the patterns in our own lives, and where we chose to go left, where maybe, gosh, what happens if I would have gone right instead, not to say that we regret the choices that we made. It's not about living a life of regrets. It's about acknowledging that we do have regrets, but learning to thrive with them. You know what I mean? Like it's because it can be a very debilitating feeling, that feeling of regret. I think it's very debilitating. I know I've been frozen by it many times in my life, and it's something that I'm always trying to work through. So it's, anyways, I love what you just said. I think it's so on point and a great summary of what we've talked about today.
Yeah, you've got a great story. I know we talked off, and that's why I said I love about the podcast is I never know where these are going to go, how we're going to navigate them. I just kind of like to let it flow. And, but you've got such a great story. I do want to ask you really quick, this 5 F's, because I mentioned that in the very beginning, because you do this through a lot of, I've been on your social media pages. They're very vibrant, and you have a great energy, which I think is fun because it's a warm feeling. And I think people like that. They can resonate with that. And, and so these 5 F's, I feel like they're showing through on your work, like they're coming out. So tell us what those are, because our listeners are like, what is this she was talking about at the beginning?
Well, thank you, Jennifer. Well, listen, it's a lot of us, we have to ask ourselves what motivates us, but also what guides us. And I think values are really important. I think Brene Brown does some of the best work I've seen when really explaining values, especially in the professional landscape. But if you take what she talks about, this idea of really having clarity of values, they are very guiding. It's a quick way to filter through all the information. I mean, our brains are bombarded with thoughts, 60 to 80,000 of them a day. Like if we had to sit there and catalog all of our thoughts that go in our head every day, I mean, we'd never leave our bed. We'd be there all day. So we have to recognize that our values is a quick filtering system that allows us to figure out, okay, does this align with things that I want in life or not? It's a yes or a no. It's not a maybe. Now, of course, we have fear of missing out a lot of the time. So we turn, anything that we're thinking about a no, we often make a maybe, which just creates a lot of overwhelm in itself, that indecisiveness. And I can speak to that. I'm a recovering maybe guy. It's all good, because it is all good. Because when you get clear on the values, it can help you sift through information very quickly, but also recognize some of those, conditioned biases that we all live with, or unconditional biases. I mean, it depends on how you look at it. But, we all have certain beliefs that are guiding us, whether we know it or not. And some of them are very limiting. We hear the term self-limiting beliefs. Now, when I got really clear many, many years ago, my wife and I started to think about our family. What are our true values that unite us as a family? And I'm a big fan of alliteration. It's the writer and speaker in me. Okay, I went to school for English literature and philosophy. Of course, that's why I had a job in fitness. I love that aspect, of that exploration, if you will. And for us, we came up with 5 F's. And I'm also a big fan of metaphors, because I find if we can create a mental picture of what we're trying to explain, it makes things easier to grasp and understand, as well as put into action. And so I like to use the metaphor of a house. And what I invite people to consider is that you are the architect of your house, and your house is a representation of your life. We know, we don't need to be told this, even though we've grown up listening to stories like the 3 pigs, right? And the big bad wolf, right? Like, we know that foundation, as well as materials that we construct a home with, is important to the integrity and longevity of a home. Well, take that same ideology and apply it to your life. One, we have to acknowledge what's the foundation upon which every life that is built can thrive if it has a great foundation in what? Well, for us, it's health. If you don't have your health, we both know. You know this, and I know this very well, based on our stories and our backgrounds and what we've experienced, that health is paramount. Without health, it's really hard to focus on anything else in our lives.
Right.
When you're sick or dealing with chronic pain, all you can think about is not having it, and it becomes very consuming. I live with a chronic autoimmune disease. So I have days that are good days. I have days that aren't good days, and it's okay. That's the life that I have. I'm okay with that. I still thrive regardless of that. And because that's the choice too, right? But here's the idea. You got the foundation of health. You've got 4 walls and a roof. I use an F for each one of those. So 5 Fs. Fitness, faith, family, finances with an overarching roof of fun.
I like it.
And the idea of finances is just how do we contribute to the world, but also how do we get remunerated? You know, and fiduciary responsibility comes into action as well. You know, a lot of us live beyond our means. I've had periods of my life where I've done that. I'm guilty. I mortgaged my future to pay for right now. and so I like to encourage people. It's one of the biggest contributors to why relationships fail as well is financial stresses. So I want people to take accountability for their financial futures and financial presence. And so finances is an important value to get clear on, especially how do you want to produce income for yourself? How do you want to contribute to the world and be remunerated? It's a good thing to have clarity around.
Sure.
Family, it's all the relationships that make life fun. You know, anything that's relationship-wise, I put in there. And fitness is the direct conduit to improve health as well as other areas of your life. So I'm talking holistic fitness, mental and emotional, spiritual, as well as physical fitness, you know, and financial fitness, as well as the last F, you know, is faith. You brought it up earlier, and I'm not going to go down any denominational path right now. I'm referring to the non-denominational aspect of faith. Sure. But it's this idea that we're contributing to something greater than ourselves. That greater draw, that purpose. As I say to people, you know, on my deathbed when I'm 135, you know, and I'm lying in the bed and I'm looking around at my family and I'm thinking, you know what? It's been fun, guys. I've had a great life and I love you all. And you know what? I'm leaving this place better than it was when I got here. Peace out. You know, like that is my talk that I'm envisioning, you know, and it helps give me direction. And then the last one's fun because if you're not smiling every day, there is room for improvement. That's all. Right. And that's it. That's the 5 Fs. Now, again, you don't have to take my values and utilize my value structure or system. Imagine your own home as your life. Health is the foundation. What are the walls? What's the roof? You know, like be the architect, design your life, think of what those values are, and then work on constantly reinforcing the integrity of that. And bam. Things get good. They get really good.
Yeah. Well, because you're living within your core values, I think is what I feel like I'm hearing from you. Yeah. It becomes more about, and I think so many people don't. I think so many people, they don't. And so this is really good. And it's great. And I'm so glad that you explained the whole metaphor with the house because I was reading the overarching roof of fun and I'm like, okay, he's going to have to explain that part there because I'm just like, your energy, I just can tell you're just having fun, whatever you're doing. And that's really, I feel like in life, that's what it's all about. If you're not having fun doing what you're doing, you need to find something that you can have fun as long as it's healthy and you're not hurting anybody else, right? It's got to be healthy and not hurting anyone.
Thank you for that qualification. That's super important to say.
Yeah, this is so great. This is so great. Okay, well, you've been amazing. I feel like we could just talk for hours
I
about this. We got a lot to talk about. I do want to do a couple fun questions with you because I just want to see what you say on these. I always call these the rapid fire. I don't know that we've ever done them rapid fire, but we're going to try today. I'm going
to try my best to be short and sweet and to the point.
Exactly. And because I'm not good at it either, but we're going to see. Okay. Let's see. So very first concert you ever attended?
Nirvana.
Oh, really?
Or Nirvana. Okay. It depends how you say it. You got to remember, I got a Canadian accent. So Nirvana. Okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. That would have been back in the 90s, early 90s. Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. All right. Oh, you know what? Sorry. Bare Naked Ladies. I was in high school.
And
I saw them play at a high school concert. Like this before they became something. And, but after that, my first real concert was Nirvana. Sorry.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I know both of them. I know who they are. So very cool. They were both. All right. Favorite destination spot? Travel.
Well, I'm a bit biased to Bali. Before the pandemic and when I exited my last business, we had 5 years of full-time travel, but 2.5 years we ended up living in Bali, Indonesia.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely love it there. Love it. But we came back because we wanted to honor our kids. They wanted to finish high school in Vancouver. So we came back right before the pandemic. It's funny how things just seem to work out. You know, we had no intention, but timing worked out in our favor. It was nice to be in Vancouver to ride out a pandemic. Trust me.
Sure.
So it was good that way.
Yeah. Well, very cool. I love it. I love that question. This is my favorite. I like all the other conversation, but the rapid fire are so much fun because I find out all kinds of cool things about people.
For sure.
All right. Okay. Since you're healthy, like I am, favorite guilty pleasure food?
My wife often encourages me not to tell people this, but I'm going to tell them anyways. All right. Because she seems to think that it's not guilty enough.
Okay. Well, Hey, it's your thing.
So here's my thing. Like, I don't eat dairy. Dairy and my body don't agree very well. Like, it creates excess inflammation, living with a chronic autoimmune disease. And similarly with your health challenges that you've navigated, you know, the effect that dairy or lactose in particular can have on us. But it doesn't mean I don't love my ice cream and I don't love my dairy treats. But here's the thing. One of my favorite things to have, okay, please, no judgment.
I'm not judging. No judgment.
Okay. So here it is. It's like yogurt, usually vanilla flavor. And I like the coconut flavor vanilla yogurt. Yeah. And then I put some dry curd cottage cheese in there.
Okay.
With a little bit of granola and some frozen fruit.
This is so funny.
I know people think it's like, that's way too healthy. That can't be a guilty pleasure. But if you understood my health and my sensitivity to dairy, you would understand it is a guilty pleasure because there's pleasureful, but the way I feel afterwards, there's some guilt there, you know, but I brought it on and I chose for it. So I live with it. You know,
it's funny that you say that because I make low carb granola. Oh, so nice. It's got low carb protein powder in it. And I have digestive things too that came from my nerve condition. So I have to be careful with food because it'll trigger a lot of problems for me too. And so I have certain foods. I know chocolate. I love chocolate, but it can be a trigger for me. Caffeine sometimes can be a trigger and it's hit or miss. Sometimes it won't bother me. Sometimes it does. But anyways, I make this low carb granola and I love it. It is so good. Like I could just eat like tons of it. Well, I have been hung up on they have these keto yogurts here and that's the brand. It's like keto and it's another name, but oh my gosh, they put avocado oil. So they're like, I don't even like yogurt, but I love these yogurts. And so just today, I went to our local Tom Thumb because I have no yogurt left because I wanted granola and yogurt. And I go in there and they have none of the vanilla left and I want the vanillas. But so I came out with coconut, strawberry, and black cherry. So then I was going through the store trying to find, because I don't have time to make the granola right now. So I was trying to find a bag of low carb granola. I'm serious. I walked out today with a bag of low carb granola and yogurt. That was my guilty pleasure for today. So I totally understand when you're talking about like, because I don't eat a lot of junk. So sometimes like I was telling somebody like I love low carb pancakes. I eat low carb pancakes and I love them. Now, if I get a good buttermilk pancake, I'm okay, but I'm okay with the low carb pancake. To me, that's like heaven because I get to eat pancakes, you know?
It's so good. Wow.
That's why I said whatever, it's different for everybody. And that's why I like asking that question. It's fun. So all right.
I love that. That's
one
so cool.
last question I want to ask you. This is one of my other fun favorite ones. What is in your Amazon cart right now?
Let's see. Oh, okay. So I bought some, how do you pronounce it? Psyllium husks. So it's like,
like psyllium husk? Or
psyllium husk. I always say psyllium.
I know what you're talking about.
Thank you. So I add that into all my smoothies, you know, just for those that aren't aware, I mean, if you're not getting an adequate fiber in your body, it will do your body wonders just by increasing your fiber content. And it's an easy fix for me to do that. I get lots of fruits and veggies in the day anyways and salads, but I like that in my morning smoothie. So that's in my Amazon cart. And I'm just trying to think what else did I have in there. There's something else that I just ordered. And I'm drawing a blank. It was a headset. I needed a new headset. So that's all. It's nothing super exciting. But,
it's okay. It's your Amazon cart, right? It's fine. But I knew what you were talking about when you said the psyllium husk, because I'm like, I have purchased that before too. I've put it in my food. So
it's amazing. Just like 1 or 2 tablespoons in your smoothie every day. And especially for the men that are listening to this, do it. Like all I can say is, and I'm not someone to be very forceful this way and say, hey, go do this. Like, cause again, I prefer inviting people to do stuff, but I will be rather dogmatic on this one. I'll be like, go do it. Just do it, but also get into a habit of a morning smoothie. Get all your fruits and vegetable quota. And I still want you to eat it throughout the day, but it's the easiest thing. If you can bang out most of that in your first meal of the day, make it easy, make it convenient, make it something that you can do very quickly. It is like the most impactful habit that I have in my life is my daily morning smoothie. Yeah. And I feel incomplete if I don't have it. I feel so off if I don't do it.
That's why I'm the same way too. I have my morning breakfast. It's the same thing pretty much every single day. I've got my low carb pancakes and my blueberries in them.
I love that. That's so good.
I get it. It's funny because I think when you have those kinds, here we got off on the rapid fire. When you have like digestive things or, autoimmunes or things we have to worry about that, you get very like kind of set in the way of the foods you can eat. So I feel like I eat pretty much the same every day. And I'm okay with that. And, and sometimes I'll go out and I'll have something different. But to me, a lot of times it's just not really worth it because I just don't want to feel bad the next day. I don't want to wake up and have stomach aches and headaches and I want my day to be great, right? Like I want it to be great. So
I love that you acknowledge that though. Like the fact that you own that, okay, I could choose to do this, but you know, it's just not worth how I'm going to feel tomorrow.
Not worth it. No, I got things to do. I got lives to change.
That's so good. That's great.
I got podcast episodes to get on so I can talk to amazing people. So Dai, this has been incredible. I've enjoyed chatting with you. You are fun, great energy. If our listeners want to get in touch with you and find out a little bit more about your coaching, your mentoring, the TEDx, your book, what you got going on in social media, where do we want to send them?
Well, thank you. You know, the one thing about having a unique name, Dai Manuel, it is pretty unique. I know I have yet to meet anybody else with that name. And Dai is a Welsh name for David.
Okay.
Manuel is Portuguese. So I know people are like now doing the math. They're like, okay, this doesn't compute quite very well. Hey, don't worry. It's just my life. And as I tell everybody, I'm just Canadian. Don't worry about it, you know? Or actually I should say, don't worry about it. But regardless, I am very active on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So if you connect with me on those social profiles, just by typing in my name, shoot me a DM, a message, or comment. It's only me. I don't have people that do this for me. I maintain that myself in my business. So those direct points of contact, those communications are very important to me. I honor those. So I always love just people sharing. I'd like to hear your answer. You know, if someone reaches out to me, I want to know what's your guilty pleasure when it comes to food. Okay.
Mine?
So I heard you and Jennifer talk about it. Here's mine. And that'd be a great way for us to start a conversation, you know?
Absolutely. Well, we'll make sure too, when this all gets together, that we get you tagged, we get them in the right places. But yes, you are easy to find.
Easy. That's what we should have. Not to get that confused with simple, of course.
Yes, that's right. Great. The easy and the simple. You're going to remember that now. It took me, I had to listen to that motivational motivational speaker say that like 10 times so I could get that in my head because I was trying to articulate it like, let me get that right. And now it's
you got it now. You nailed it. Can you explain that so well, Jennifer? That was great. I love it.
It's in my head now. Are we being simple
quoting you on that next time.
Exactly. Are we being simple? Or are we being easy today? Which one we going on? Is this a complex problem? Or are we just having no will and determination today? So this has been great. I want to thank you so much, Dai, for being on the show today and your energy and just all the fun, warm stuff. You're doing amazing things. And I just want to keep encouraging you to keep doing you because I think you're spreading light and sharing, you know, your energy and your happiness to the world. And that's what we need more of today. So thank you for all of that.
Oh, thank you so much for that. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor. And I'm just very grateful to have met you and to have been part of this experience today, the shared experience. And thank you for creating the space for these conversations to happen. You know, it's just amazing because you're actually offsetting that negative to positive balance, which has been completely out of whack the last few years of this whole global pandemic that we're having. You know, I look at the amount of negative media. We need more positive. And so you are offsetting that scale in a huge way. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. All right. And of course, we do want to say to our listeners, if you enjoy our show, please be sure you give us a rating both on iTunes and Facebook. We can't do this without you. And then hit that subscribe button on the YouTube. We want to leave you with our parting thought, which I mentioned earlier. I always say the same thing because I'm all about it. If you want to live the extraordinary, you have to start. And every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, and be kind to one another. We will see you next time.